Fans are calling for a boycott of Netflix. The innocent glove picture is popping up all over social media, and people are speculating the documentary is the reason for the company's stock drop over the past week. But the most insidious part is, the Michael biopic just came out, the movie is still in theaters, and it's bringing old fans and new fans together to celebrate Michael. And right in the middle of it, Netflix puts out this documentary talking about the one thing the movie was forced to leave out due to a legal clause.
This was a man who was unique in his talent, skill, and accomplishment, and unique in his victimization of children.
So I watched all 3 episodes. They cover the entire 2005 trial. And even though Michael won the case, the documentary paints the picture that Michael was a monster who got away with abusing children. But then I went and found the real court documents, the testimonies that they chose to leave out. See, the story that Netflix tells you isn't quite what it seems. Even the family at the center of the whole case, the Arvizos, in the documentary, they're the victims. The broke family, the sick kid, the superstar who took advantage of him. But that's not the family I found in the court records. What they don't tell you is this family is probably the worst nightmare for a celebrity. And this is a scam that they've been running for years before they met Michael. But before we meet the Arvizos, we gotta start with the man who put this entire thing in motion.
If we're talking about documentaries, especially in relation to Michael Jackson, we have to check in terms of who's actually making money from the defamation of Michael Jackson. This is a guy who actually died in 2009, even though he is being dead, but people are not stopping to actually make videos of him. If you've already died, even if people are making videos about you, whether true or false, you cannot come back and actually stand up for yourself and tell your side of the story. I think that's the messed up thing in terms of this whole documentary.
Martin Bashir is the British journalist who made Living with Michael Jackson back in 2003. It's the one where Michael's holding hands with Gavin Arvizo and talking about letting kids sleep in his bed. And Bashir's documentary is the whole reason the 2005 trial even exists. So Netflix brings him back in, sits him down and lets him walk you through how he met Michael and earned his trust. They frame him as a credible, respected journalist who finally got the story. Except Netflix leaves out one pretty important detail about Martin Bashir. The documentary mentions that Bashir interviewed Princess Diana in 1995, and it's a big reason why Michael trusted him. Over 20 million people watched it, and it's the thing that made his career. But in 2021, an investigation by the BBC figured out how he actually got the interview. He faked bank statements. He had a designer mock up fake documents to make it look like people close to Diana were being paid to spy on her. And he used those fakes to win over her brother and get himself in the door. So that's the man whose documentary launched the whole case. Basically, Bashir was a snake in the grass. It's the same play that he ran on Diana. Be the sympathetic guy in the room, but then turn around and sell them out in the edit.
Certainly when I made the documentary, there was a small part of that which contained a controversy concerning his relationship with other young people. But the truth is that he was never convicted of any crime. I never saw any wrongdoing myself. And whilst his lifestyle...
This is a guy whose childhood was taken away from him. This is a guy who never experienced childhood. Like, just imagine yourself never experiencing childhood. So even from a young age, he is being exposed to the paparazzi. His life is being out there. You couldn't even go shopping without people taking pictures. In order to go shopping, he either has to shut down the whole mall or the whole shop just to try to experience normal life. Then he will take his people, whether producer or whoever who you are surrounded with, to walk around the shop so that they can pretend to be people who shop just to experience normal life. And how he explained his relationship with kids is that he sees himself in them. He actually saw himself in them because they're actually living the life that they never got to live. And somehow the people started to persecute him for that, even though most of these things were actually proven to be false. But because people still need to make money, and somehow Netflix, I don't know how they decided that this is the best thing to do, whether because there's a movie that was released that they should also make a documentary about him. Then they also decided that they want to make a video about Michael Jackson abusing kids, which was already proven that it was not true.
May have been a bit unorthodox. I don't believe it was criminal.
But Bashir only made the film that started all this. He's not the one that's narrating the trial. For that, Netflix needed reporters, people who were actually there in 2005, who covered the whole thing day by day. And the journalist they leaned on more than anyone has been on a Michael Jackson witch hunt since 1993.
Ever since the Michael Jackson child molestation scandal broke, we've gotten a constant stream of calls and letters from people making dubious claims about the singer.
Her name is Diane Dimond, and the biggest story she ever broke about Michael was a videotape, a tape that she told the entire country was real, one that supposedly caught him doing some bad things to a child. By the way, I am gonna have to watch my language a little bit in this video, so just bear with me. Now, about this tape, the problem was the tape never existed. The whole thing traced back to one source, a guy named Victor Gutierrez, who claimed he'd seen it. Diane Dimond took that claim, put it on national TV and on the radio, told millions of people the tape was real and that the investigators were closing in on Michael. Now, Diane, she got off. The court ruled that she was just reporting on the claim and not necessarily stating it as fact.
If this happened now, we know that there was gonna be a lot of defamation cases. Like, it's wrong. Like, you can't just claim something happened when something didn't happen. And it's a good thing that Michael actually sued this person. But the bad thing is that the amount of publicity in terms of what this got and the amount of reputation damage, especially if you are a male and you are abusing kids allegedly, it means that your reputation is going to be very hard to actually repair that. And I don't think that there's any amount of money that this woman could potentially pay in order to repair that. I think that's the bad thing in terms of being a celebrity. And most people, they actually believe too quick. And some people, once they decide that they're going to believe something, whether you come back with your side of the story, even though it makes sense, they're not going to believe you anymore. I think that's the sad thing about him.
Defamation, but he didn't win. But I'm pretty sure that Diane didn't appreciate it. So the reporter Netflix is using to narrate Michael Jackson's trial as the credible voice who knows the case better than anybody is the same person who ran a national defamation news story with no evidence. And she wasn't just talking about the trial itself. She actually inserted her own opinions and versions of stories and information. She even talked about a story from her own book where she claims that she saw Michael Jackson in a Las Vegas hotel room partying with random German boys, drinking and smoking. There's a lot of reasons why that story doesn't really make any sense, but who knows? So I guess the question is, why would Netflix have somebody that seems so personally attached and committed to taking Michael down and still try to sell the documentary as fair and balanced? Now, the reporters are one problem, but Netflix also leans hard on the people who were actually in the trial. And one of them was a prosecutor who tried to send Michael to prison. But as we're about to see, he had his own conflict of interest. Ron Zonin was one of the lead prosecutors on the 2005 case, working right under the district attorney. And he's one of the main voices that's walking you through the whole thing. But there's a connection that Netflix never mentions. During the trial, the prosecution called a witness named Louise Palanker. She'd known the Arvizo family for years, and she met Gavin back when he was around 9 years old. And over time, she gave them money and gifts. So you got Ron Zonin, the prosecutor, and Louise Palanker, a witness who's close to the accuser's family. And somewhere in the middle of the trial, the two of them got into a romantic relationship. And they got married a few years later. Now, the relationship wasn't known at the time of the trial, but if it had, Ronan could have been removed from the case altogether. So in the documentary, he's sitting there giving his own opinions and interpretations. He even tries to paint Michael as this evil mastermind where he pretends to be the father figure.
Ever since the whole Diddy case and also the R. Kelly case, which I need to say that those two different cases, they're completely different from what Michael Jackson actually went through. And if we actually go back to history and actually check in terms of what Michael Jackson was actually going through, he was going through a lot of people who were either trying to exploit him for money or try to defame him. Like, he either had one choice: either settle this out of court or actually allow these people to actually drag his whole reputation throughout the mud. And these are people who are just evil, man. They're just evil. Like, they can't even let the guy to actually rest in peace, you know. This is a guy who actually suffered throughout his entire life. I think if you have actually monitored and went through his whole upbringing until the day that he passed away, you could see that this is a guy who actually went through a lot, and the thing that he wanted to be was to be as normal as possible, but he couldn't do that because there was always people who were always behind them. People like these, I don't trust people in suits, people who actually have a fake smile. You can see that smile is not real. Like, I don't trust such people because they always have a vendetta behind them. And you also have to ask yourself in terms of, what are they benefiting from this? There's always a benefit element from all of this.
Fall in love with him and say, okay, now that you love me, now let's go to bed. So that's who's telling the story. Now let's talk about the story itself, because a biased narrator is one thing, but the verdict also puts a handful of stories and claims on the screen, and they make it feel like hard evidence. Vincent Amon was a former publicist of Michael's, and he knew him through his assistant, Frank Casillo. Amon says after the Neverland raid, Frank Casillo gave him a bag with all of the things that he had from the Neverland Ranch. Inside was a naturist magazine with a section in the back for ordering videos. It had listings containing nudist families, and they were circled. And he says that this was a defining moment that changed his whole perspective, changed his mind, and it made him think that something was actually going on here. But let's actually take a look at it and get the whole picture. First of all, that magazine was never tested for fingerprints, and it was never entered in as evidence at the trial. It didn't come from Michael's house. It came out of a bag that Frank Casillo gave him. And nobody knows who circled the listings. And across both Neverland raids in 93 and 2003, investigators never found any of those videos. The only thing that we have about this story is the trust of Vincent Amon and the fact that he says that Frank Casillo gave it to him. And Frank Casillo and his family aren't the most trustworthy people either. The Casillo family spent the last 30 years defending Michael, and literally right now they're switching their story trying to get millions of dollars out of the Jackson estate. The next thing the documentary leans on is when they raided Neverland Ranch, they did find a stash of adult magazines. Nothing like the magazine that Amon was talking about. There was nothing illegal in the stash, but there's one piece the prosecution really hung on to. One magazine had Michael's fingerprints on it and the accuser's fingerprints on it. And they used this to argue, see, this proves it. Michael sat there and he showed it to the kids. But there's problems with that. Multiple staff members, they testified that the Arvizo kids would go through Michael's things when he wasn't even there. So a fingerprint on a magazine tells you the kid touched it. It doesn't tell you.
Yeah, it doesn't tell that Michael Jackson actually gave them. It's just like you as a parent. Most of the time you actually spend time not being around. If you are a parent who actually works away from home and your kids actually go to school and they actually come back when you're not there, or maybe you actually went somewhere and you leave your kids in the house. Kids are the most people who are so busy. They're gonna go through your stuff. They're gonna touch everything that you have. Kids are gonna go through your stuff. I think people who actually have kids, they can vouch for this. And just because there was kids in this house who were actually going through things, maybe they ended up going through the magazine, which I must say, maybe that was poor decision making from Michael's side to actually not put it in a safe place. But at the same time, we have to also think that this is someone similar to Floyd Money Mayweather in terms of the amount of people that he surrounded himself with. There was always so many people that he was surrounded with. You may find that that magazine was not even his, you may find that he touched it by mistake. then you actually decide that this is the proof of evidence that you want to use, which is not really fair, not really fair, because you're not giving me much to actually prove myself that I'm innocent. Like, you're just making speculations at this point.
Or deny what happened. But the documentary paints it as if, hey, this is what happened, and how could they have let this slide? But to really sell the idea that Michael was guilty, the documentary reached all the way back to 1993, where the first allegation happened from Jordan Chandler. And the big talking point is the settlement. Michael paid the Chandler family somewhere around $20 million. And the way it gets framed is innocent people don't pay, and it was hush money. But that's not exactly how settlements actually work.
Yeah, I agree. That's not how settlement works. Like, you have to decide, especially if you are someone who's famous, you have to decide. You actually have a reputation to uphold. Especially if this is something that's actually ruining your name. The first thing, it's ruining your name. The second thing, maybe you have sponsor deals. The next thing, maybe you have upcoming gigs. Like, you have so many things that are conflicted all in one, which are things that actually help you to generate money. So this defamation is actually hurting you. The reputation is going to hurt you in the long run. Maybe people are not going to buy your music in the next year when you release. Sponsorships may decide to stay away from you, even though that defamation was proven to be false. Concerts, maybe some people may decide that they don't want to come to your concerts. So it's always in the best interest for you to actually end things as quick as possible, and that's why people decide that they want to settle even though they know that they are innocent. But because the court case is going to drag on for so long, they can already anticipate all those things and the consequences. That's why the lawyers will actually advise you that, you know what, it might be best to actually settle these things out of court. You may lose money, but in the long run, it may actually benefit you. I'm not saying that there isn't people who are actually guilty who don't use that to their benefit. For example, we have Diddy and the Casey situation. Yes, there are people who are actually gonna abuse that, but at the same time, there are actually people who are actually innocent out there who actually decide that, you know what, I don't want this headache. Let me just settle, and so that this thing can actually go away.
That was a civil case, a lawsuit for money, for damages, and a civil settlement can't shut down a criminal case. Now, paying off an accuser might look bad in the court of public opinion, but it doesn't make you guilty. Now, the documentary kept trying to bring up old dirt because tied to that 1993 trial comes with one of the most uncomfortable claims in the whole documentary.
They served a search warrant on me, which allowed them to view and photograph my body, including my penis, my buttocks, my lower torso, thighs, and any other area that they wanted.
They photographed him naked, and they were trying to compare it to a description that Jordan Chandler gave of what Michael looked like under his clothes. And in the documentary, they actually make the claim that the descriptions matched. But what they leave out is, when the strip search first happened, the early reporting on it, they all cited law enforcement sources who said that the descriptions did not match.
They went out and they got a search warrant. That meant that Michael had to comply. He had to go down to the sheriff's department. He had to drop his pants. He had to do whatever said in the search warrant. If Jordy Chandler had an accurate description, if he was right with whatever he said, if he was spot on 100%, they would have hooked up Michael right there on the spot.
So if Jordan Chandler's description was a real match, why did law enforcement who performed the search say otherwise? And why didn't they make an arrest? And more importantly, why put a straight up lie in the documentary? So those are the main claims that the documentary leans on, and none of them really hold up the way that they want them to. But the evidence was never really the heart of this. The heart of this whole thing is the family, the Arvizos. In the verdict, it paints them one way: a struggling single mom, a sick kid, a family that got used by a rich, powerful celebrity. But at one point, the doc does actually tell a story that shows the Arvizos have a history of money scams.
These are the people that you actually decide to base the documentary on. The people who are actually have been proven to be scammers. That's like me actually going to a Nigerian scammer and actually basing a lot of things using a Nigerian scam. You think that anyone's gonna take me serious? I think here, because they are from people from the other demography, some people are actually taking them serious. I think this documentary didn't actually end up doing as good as what Netflix might have hoped, especially looking at what that actually did in terms of their stocks number. It actually brought up the reputation of Michael Jackson. They actually ended up making more money from the movie. Even the music, I mean, Drake released the music using the glove, but the music from Michael Jackson Thriller actually ended up being top more than his album. Imagine like an album from many years ago. So as much as they've been trying to defame this guy and they don't want him to rest in peace, clearly it's not working, at least from how I see it and where I'm standing.
Mom sued JCPenney and claimed that the security guards sexually assaulted her in the parking lot, and she won $150,000. And right after that, she applied for government assistance, which she later got charged with welfare fraud. So I do give Netflix credit for including this story, but JCPenney wasn't the only time the Arvizos did something like this. And Michael wasn't the first celebrity the Arvizos attached themselves to. Before they met Michael, they did the same thing to two of the most famous comedians in America. And this is the part that Netflix didn't tell you. Chris Tucker tried to warn Michael about the Arvizos because of his own run-in with them.
I was performing one night, and this guy came up to me, and I thought he worked at the club, but it was this guy. He said, "My kid has cancer, and he loves you as a comedian." His father came up to me again. He said, "Tomorrow night is the benefit, and the kid's named Gavin." So I said, "Okay, tomorrow night I'm not doing it, and I'll be here." You know, he had cancer, so I came and met him. His name is Gavin, and he's a real good friend of mine. I love him to death. He said, he met me. He said, "Hey, Chris, how you doing? Thanks for coming." And he said, I know Michael Jackson. I was like, "Yeah, right, yeah, okay. How you doing? You feeling good?" He said, "All right, yeah, I know Michael Jackson." And I come to find out later, he really did know Michael Jackson.
Chris Tucker, being a good guy, felt for the kid, so he opened up his life to him. Trips, theme parks, but then things started to get weird. They turned up at the set of Rush Hour 2, and they wouldn't leave. The kids are disruptive on set.
One day I was filming Rush Hour 2. I'll never forget this. I was in the middle of a scene, and Gavin's bad, too. He's real bad, but I love him. But we was filming the scene, me and Jack, and Gavin runs on the set in the middle of the set.
It got so bad that they even asked Chris Tucker to not bring them around anymore. And then Chris, he started to notice that the family was working him. They was always leaning on the cancer, always needing the next thing. Chris even testified in the trial in 2005, and he told the jury that Gavin was unusually cunning and sophisticated for a kid his age.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and actually end this video right here. I, for one, let me actually put myself in terms of this situation. I, for one, like, I don't trust people, to be honest. I don't trust people, especially people that I do not know. I think that's why celebrities now, they've actually started to actually protect themselves. Like, they won't allow anyone that they don't know in their circle. That's why they always hang with people that they know. They always date other celebrities because of these issues that people actually going through many years ago. Because people, especially when they know that you have money, they're gonna make means to try to access that money, which is exactly what was happening. This is a family of predators, which Netflix decided that they want to also include them in the documentary to actually say that, oh, this is true, this is what Michael Jackson was actually doing. I think it's poor from Netflix, to be honest, and a bit disappointing from their side. I know that Netflix just takes any story that they get and they will make any documentary, but most of the documentaries that they were making were actually used to make sense, you know, because there was proof of that, like the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. But on this one, this was just a poor choice from their side, because now you're actually trying to defame a guy who has already passed away. I'm not necessarily saying that you can't make documentaries about people that have passed away. I mean, there are bad people out there like Hitler and many others who have already passed away. but I think we have to choose properly, you know. We have to choose properly. So as celebrities, this is a life lesson. We have to check in terms of who you include in your circle. Never feel pity for anyone, whether they say cancer and whatever, just stay away. They are not your people. Focus on you and do you. Yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.